Tennessee, 1931, Harlan County, just over the ridge from a mining camp called Catlett's Branch. A woman named Nettie Faye Grubbs is standing over a cast iron pot at 5 in the morning stirring a brine she mixed by lamplight. Her husband went into the shaft 14 months ago and did not come out. She has 3 children and $11 in mercantile credit, and that credit runs out in 6 weeks. The brine smells of vinegar and wood smoke. Outside, the temperature has not climbed above 22 degrees in 4 days. She is not scared. She is working. Today, the majority of Americans would call what Nettie was doing primitive. Most households within 50 miles of that ridge cannot keep food safe for 72 hours if the power goes out. We've got 12 different apps on our phones, and we cannot do what a widow in a coal camp did before sunrise in the middle of winter. But here's the twist. The record says Nettie Grubbs did not go hungry that year. The record says her children made it through to spring with meat on the table and a cellar that still had food in it when the dogwoods bloomed. The record says she knew exactly what she was doing, and she learned it from her mother, who learned it from hers. What Nettie was practicing has a name. It is called brine preservation and cold cellar management, and it is a system of skills so complete and so reliable that the Department of Agriculture spent decades writing bulletins about it for rural households across this country. It is a sovereign skill. Nobody bills you for it. Nobody can take it back. My name is Wade Tolliver. I am 58 years old, and I am 6th generation in Tolliver Gap up on the Cumberland Plateau in eastern Kentucky. My family came up here in 1788 and has not left since. I inherited a book from my grandfather, Emmett Tolliver, a black ledger he kept from 1931 until 1979. The front pages are house accounts. What a pound of lard cost, what the railroad paid him for a day's work, what a new axe handle ran at the feed store. But the back pages and the margins, those are something else entirely. That is where Emmett wrote down how things were done. Every method, every measurement, every warning he thought was worth keeping. He made me swear before he died that what was in that book would not die with me. Every one of these videos is me keeping that word. There are still 40 years of margins in that book I have not gotten to yet, so we are not running out of material anytime soon. Before we get into the count, I want to flag 2 numbers for you right now. Number 17 on today's list was actively discouraged by federal agencies for about 30 years, and researchers out of a state extension service confirmed recently that the old method outperforms the commercial product it replaced, the one that currently costs about $12 a bottle. And number 4 produces a chemical process that modern food science has studied for over a century and still cannot improve upon, even with industrial equipment. Keep those in mind. Now, 20 survival skills from the Depression era, counted down to the one Emmett called the most important thing a man could know. Let us start. Number 20, ash lye soap, Kentucky, 1934. You took hardwood ash, nothing else, white oak or hickory worked best, and you packed it into a wooden hopper with a plug at the bottom and a clay-lined trough beneath. You poured water through it slowly, a gallon at a time, and collected what dripped out, which was lye water. You tested it with a fresh egg. If the egg floated with a surface about the size of a quarter, showing above the water, the lye was strong enough. Then you combined it with rendered lard or tallow at a ratio of roughly 1 part lye water to 2 parts fat, cooked it low and slow until it traced, and poured it into a wooden mold to cure for 4 to 6 weeks. The result was a hard soap that cleaned clothes, wounds, tools, and skin, and cost you nothing but time. The USDA Extension Services documented this method in bulletins, circulated to rural households well into the 1940s. It died somewhere around 1955 when packaged detergent became cheap enough to undercut homemade soap at the general store, and the margins on those detergents were very good for the companies that made them. The flaw people make today when they try this is using softwood ash, which does not have the potassium content to produce usable lye, and ending up with a greasy mess they throw out. Number 19, fat lamp fuel. Appalachia, 1932. Kerosene costs money, Rendered fat did not, or at least not cash money. You took a shallow tin dish, a strip of cotton cloth, twisted into a wick, and a tablespoon of lard or bear grease, and you had light for 2 to 3 hours. The wick needed to be kept trimmed to about a 1/4 inch, or it smoked badly and threw soot. Tallow from beef produced a cleaner burn than pork lard. Animal fat lamps of this type were the primary light source for rural homes in this country for 200 years before kerosene arrived and 100 years before electricity reached the hollows. This is not a campfire trick. This is how your great-grandmother read her Bible after the children went to sleep. Here is your this week. Find a shallow tin can in your kitchen, a strip of an old cotton t-shirt, and whatever cooking fat you have on hand. Set it up on your back porch tonight and light it. Time how long it burns. That is the exercise. You need to know the answer before you need the answer. Number 18. Root cellaring without a cellar. Missouri, 1936. Not everyone had a dug cellar. What they had was a hillside, a wooden door, and a pile of clean, dry sand. You packed root vegetables, turnips, carrots, parsnips, beets, in layers of slightly damp sand inside wooden crates, kept them in the coolest dark spot available, and they held for 4 to 5 months without refrigeration. The sand kept humidity steady enough to prevent shriveling but dry enough to prevent rot. Temperatures between 32 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit were ideal, but even a crawl space that held 45 degrees would carry you through a hard winter. The extension services at land-grant universities still teach this method because it works, and it costs nothing beyond the sand. The common failure today is using wet sand instead of barely damp, which encourages mold within 3 weeks. The vegetables should feel firm and cool when you check them, not slimy. Number 17. Herbal wound packing with yarrow. Now the first pattern break, friend. From here down, we are no longer talking about convenience or cost savings. We are talking about keeping people alive when there is no pharmacy and no clinic within reach. Yarrow, Achillea mellifilis, grows wild across almost every state in this country and has been used as a field wound dressing for longer than this nation has existed. Civil War field surgeons documented its use. The dried or fresh leaves packed directly onto a bleeding cut act as a styptic and carry mild antimicrobial properties. The plant was so well understood by rural families that it had regional folk names across the South and Midwest. Names like soldier's woundwort and nosebleed plant. A state extension study in recent years confirmed that the traditional application method produces results comparable to commercial styptic products that currently retail around $12. Targets is being told to you as history, not as medical advice. If you have a serious wound, you get to a doctor. But knowing what yarrow looks like and where it grows near your property is a skill that costs you nothing and that nobody can sell back to you. The mistake people make is confusing yarrow with Queen Anne's lace. Look at the leaf. Yarrow is feathery and fern-like, deeply cut. Queen Anne's lace has a leaf more like a carrot top. Learn the difference before you need it. Number 16. Vinegar as a surface preservative and disinfectant. Ohio, 1933. Distilled white vinegar at 5% acidity was used to wipe down food preparation surfaces, preserve cut vegetables in crocks, treat minor skin infections, and extend the life of perishables kept in a cool pantry. The Department of Agriculture documented its antimicrobial properties in household guidance going back before the First World War. A gallon of vinegar in the Depression era cost a family almost nothing if they made their own from apple scraps and well water, which Emmett's book has a full process for in the back margins. It has a shelf life measured in years, not months. It disappeared from the medicine cabinet and the preserving shelf around 1965 when aerosol disinfectants took over the market. The margins on aerosol disinfectants were considerably better. Number 15. Open fire bread without an oven. Arkansas, 1935. You mix 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon of salt, enough water to make a stiff dough, and wrap strips of it around a green hardwood stick. about the thickness of your thumb, cooked over open coals, turning constantly, about 12 to 15 minutes. What you got was called trail bread, twist bread, or bannock, depending on which part of the country you were in, and it was the difference between a man working all day and a man who quit at noon. The stick needed to be hardwood, fresh cut and still green so it would not burn before the bread cooked. Dry wood catches and ruins the dough. Soft wood like pine gives a bread a taste that will put you off eating for the rest of the day. Here is your this week on this one. This Saturday morning, cut a fresh stick from a hardwood tree on your property. Make the dough. Try it. You will know in 15 minutes whether you understand fire management or whether you have been letting propane do your thinking. Number 14. Smokehouse salt cure ratios. Georgia, 1931. The standard salt cure for pork belly ran about 2 pounds of non-iodized salt per 10 pounds of meat, rubbed into every surface including the cavity and any cut edges, then packed in a wooden barrel or crock, covered and held at temperatures between 34 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit for a minimum of 1 day per pound of meat plus 2 days extra. A 10-pound belly needed at least 12 days. The USDA and the National Center for Home Food Preservation both have documented guidance on this that aligns almost exactly with what Emmett recorded in his margins in 1937. The warning: you cannot skip. You must use non-iodized salt for this process. Iodized salt inhibits the microbial control you are counting on. And the temperature window is not a suggestion. If the meat goes above 40 degrees during the cure, you have a spoilage risk. If you are in any doubt at all about your temperatures, do not eat it. Salt curing done correctly produces a product that is shelf-stable for months. Salt curing done carelessly produces botulism, and botulism will kill you. This is one of those places where the old-timers were precise because the price of imprecision was a funeral. Be precise. Number 13. Hand-dug well indicators. Now the second pattern break. And here's where I have to be honest with you about something. These next items are not just skills that got inconvenient. Some of them are skills that someone wrote policy to discourage, and in a few cases, rules that make certain applications complicated depending on where you live. I am not telling you to break any law. I am telling you to know what the law says in your county before you act, because the law varies, and what is perfectly legal in rural Kentucky may not be in suburban New Jersey. Look it up. Know before you do. Kentucky, 1938. Before a family dug a well, they read the land. They looked for the depression in a field where soil settled soft after rain, the dark green line of watercress following a buried seep, the morning fog sitting low in one particular hollow, the way the livestock graze toward one corner of a pasture in dry July. None of that is magic. All of it is observation that points to subsurface water. The extension services at land-grant universities have documented these indicators formally, and the basic sight reading principles have not changed. Today, this skill is regulated in most states, meaning you need permits to drill and in some areas to dig. Check your state and county requirements before any excavation. The knowledge of how to read land for water is free and legal everywhere. What you do with that knowledge is where the paperwork starts. Number 12. Acorn flour processing. Appalachia, 1932. White oak acorns were gathered after first frost, dried in the sun for 2 weeks, shelled, ground with a hand mill or between flat stones, then leached of tannins by soaking the flour in cold running water for 2 to 3 days, changing the water twice daily, or by repeated soaking in buckets with water changes every 8 hours over 4 days. The result was a mild, slightly nutty flour that mixed well with cornmeal for flatbreads and porridge. It is high in fat and carbohydrate and fed families in the Ohio Valley and across the southern mountains for generations before commercial flour became cheap enough to make the labor seem not worth it. The failure point is not completing the leaching. Underleached acorn flour is bitter enough to make the bread inedible and causes digestive distress in quantity. The water runs clear when the tannins are gone. Do not rush that step. Number 11. Beeswax as a waterproofing and sealing compound. Ohio, 1933. Raw beeswax melted and worked into the seams of leather boots, wooden tool handles, wooden barrel staves, and canvas made those items last years longer than they would have otherwise. A pound of beeswax at a Depression-era feed store cost about 30 cents and treated everything a family owned multiple times over. It stopped wood from checking in dry weather, stopped leather from cracking in cold, and sealed the threads of canning jar lids against moisture infiltration. The method required nothing more than a tin can over low heat and a rag. It was replaced in most households by petroleum-based products in the 1950s. The petroleum-based products needed to be repurchased regularly. The beeswax, if you kept bees, cost you nothing but the rendering. Number 10. Charcoal as a water clarifier. Tennessee, 1934. This is being told as history, not as a water treatment instruction for your municipal supply. If your water is contaminated with chemicals, industrial runoff, or biological hazards, you need proper filtration and testing. With that said, families in areas without reliable water used layered filtration systems built from sand, gravel, and wood charcoal, not commercial activated charcoal, but charcoal produced from hardwood burned slow and hot in a low oxygen environment, essentially the same process used to produce charcoal for cooking. Packed into a wooden barrel in layers, gravel at the bottom, then charcoal, then clean sand, with a spigot at the base. It clarified turbid water to the point of safe drinking, provided the source water did not carry the kind of bacterial load that required boiling as well. In most cases, they boiled the filtered water anyway. That combination, mechanical filtration then heat, is a system the USDA has documented in emergency water guidance for rural households going back decades. Know your water source before you rely on any field method. That is not a disclaimer, that is a skill. Number 9. Reed and grass mat insulation. The third pattern break. And this is the part of the list where we get into things that are not just lost skills, but things that have been priced out of reach deliberately. And I want to be careful how I say this because I do not want to overstate it. Not a conspiracy, neighbor. That is not what I am saying. What I am saying is this. When you can sell a man a new fiberglass bat insulation every time he remodels and charge him labor to install it, there is no money in teaching him. That dried cattail leaves packed into a wall cavity have an insulation value that early 20th century homesteaders considered adequate for a hard Appalachian winter. Nobody was going to profit from that knowledge surviving. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how markets work. Nobody outlawed your cattails. They just made sure you never thought to ask about them. Virginia, 1937. Reed mats, woven cattail leaves, and dried grass bundles were packed into wall cavities, used as floor underlayment, and layered under roof sections to add insulating mass. The technique required no manufactured material, no special tools, and no purchase. It worked because dead air trapped in fibrous material resists heat transfer, which is exactly the same principle behind every commercial insulation product sold today. The physics did not change, only the packaging did. Number 8. Rendering tallow for long-term storage. Missouri, 1932. Beef tallow rendered clean, meaning the raw fat simmered slowly with a small amount of water until all moisture cooked off and the fat ran clear, then strained through cheesecloth and poured into sealed crocks or tins, stored in a cool, dark place, would hold without refrigeration for up to a single beef animal provided enough fat to render 10 to 15 pounds of tallow, which was enough to run a household's basic needs for the better part of a year. The common failure today is not rendering it completely dry before sealing it. Any remaining moisture in the tallow causes rancidity within weeks. You know it is ready when the bubbling stops entirely and the fat runs clear and still. Pour it then, not before. Number 7. Iron pot seasoning and restoration. Tennessee, 1933. Cast iron that had been allowed to rust was restored by scrubbing with a cut potato and coarse salt, then rinsed, dried completely over direct heat, and given a thin coat of lard or tallow, a coat thin enough that you could barely see it, then baked in an oven or held over coals until it smoked. That process, repeated 4 to 6 times, built a cooking surface that nothing manufactured today can match for even heat distribution and natural nonstick performance. The failure people make today is using too much fat. A thick coat of oil does not season iron. It produces a sticky, gummy surface that never properly cures. Thin enough that you doubt it is there. That is the application. Number 6, hand split shingle and shake repair. North Carolina, 1935. A man who could split his own shingles from white oak or chestnut bolts with a froe and a mallet did not need a roofing contractor. He needed a straight grain bolt of wood, about 18 inches long, a froe, a mallet, a hammer, and a bag of cut nails. White oak splits clean along the grain and sheds water better than most modern composite roofing materials because the grain runs the full length of the shingle, meaning water follows the grain down and off instead of pooling in cut ends. A skilled man could split and install enough shingles to repair a section of roof in a day. An unskilled man who had practiced once or twice could do the same job in 2 days. The froe is the tool almost nobody owns anymore. It costs about $30 from a blacksmith or tool supply. That is the only capital outlay this skill requires. Number 5, night soil composting and garden fertility management. Now, some of you just reacted to that phrase, and I understand. But let me tell you something Emmett wrote in the margin next to his 1943 planting records. He wrote, "A man who knows what his ground needs does not buy what his ground makes." Kentucky, 1943. Humanure composting, managed correctly, was a standard practice on American farms for generations. It required a dedicated pile, isolation from the kitchen garden by a minimum of 50 feet, a full hot composting cycle of at least 1 year before application, and application only to non-edible ornamentals or fruit trees, never to root vegetables or leafy greens. The thermal kill of pathogens in a properly managed hot compost pile running between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit is documented by the EPA and the USDA. The failure that makes people sick is skipping the full cycle, using the material too soon, or applying it to the wrong crops. This is not a method for casual experimentation. Research the full process, check your local regulations, because they vary significantly by state and county, and understand the thermal requirements before you attempt it. The knowledge itself is free and legal. The execution requires care. Number 4, wild yeast cultivation and sour starter. Here is the chemical process I mentioned at the top. 1931, across the entire rural South and Midwest. Wild yeast starter, kept alive by daily feeding of flour and water, produces lactic acid fermentation through the activity of lactobacillus bacteria that occur naturally on grain and in the air. That fermentation both leavens bread and acidifies the dough to a pH that inhibits mold growth, extending shelf life significantly compared to commercial yeast bread. It also pre-digests some of the phytic acid in the grain, improving mineral bioavailability. Food scientists have studied this for a century and have not found a commercially manufactured additive that replicates all 3 effects simultaneously. A starter costs nothing to begin. You mix flour and water in equal weights, cover it loosely, and feed it the same ratio once a day for 5 to 7 days until it bubbles actively and smells sour and yeasty, not rotten. Rotten smells like ammonia or acetone. Sour smells like beer and vinegar. Learn the difference in your nose before you bake with it. The commercial yeast industry was established at scale in the United States in the late 19th century. By 1950, The idea that you could maintain your own leavening agent at home had become, for most Americans, as foreign as building your own furniture. Number 3. Cold smoked fish and game preservation. Oregon, 1932. Cold smoking, meaning smoking at temperatures between 70 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit for periods of 12 to 72 hours, does not fully cook the meat. It dries the surface, deposits antimicrobial compounds from the smoke, and in combination with a prior salt cure, produces a shelf-stable product. This is distinct from hot smoking, which cooks the meat. Cold smoked product that has not been salt cured first is a botulism risk. The sequence is mandatory. Salt cure first, cold smoke second. That sequence is not optional, and it is not a detail. It is the safety architecture of the entire method. The USDA and the National Center for Home Food Preservation have specific guidance on this. Read it before you try it. The method is as old as human habitation in cold climates. The failure rate among people who try it today is high because they skip the cure and go straight to smoke, and that is how people end up very seriously ill. Number 2, water bath versus pressure canning decision. Kansas, 1935. Here's the knowledge that would have saved lives then and still matters now. High acid foods, fruits, tomatoes with added acid, pickles, jams can be safely processed in a boiling water bath canner because the high acid environment prevents the growth of Clostridium botulinum. Low acid foods, every vegetable except tomato, all meats, all stocks and soups, all beans require pressure canning at 240 degrees Fahrenheit, a temperature only achievable under pressure because Clostridium botulinum spores survive a boiling water bath and produce the toxin that kills. This distinction is not preference or tradition. It is the line between safe food storage and a life-threatening condition. The extension services at land-grant universities have published this guidance consistently since the early 20th century. The Ball Blue Book of Canning has documented the correct method and the acid cutoff values for every common food for decades. This knowledge was in every rural household in 1935. By 1980, a large portion of Americans had lost it entirely because refrigerators and grocery stores had made it seem unnecessary. It becomes necessary again the first time you lose power for a week and you have a garden full of green beans. And now, number 1, I have been working up to this for most of this video, and I want to take a moment before I say it because Emmett circled this one in the back of his book, not underlined, circled, with a note next to it that says, first and last, number 1, fire management and fuel selection for sustained heat. Emmett called it the most important thing a man could know, and I have thought about that claim for 30 years. Kentucky, 1931. There is a science to fuel that most people alive today have never heard, and that was once as commonly understood as knowing not to eat a mushroom you could not identify. The rule was this: hardwoods for heat, softwoods for quick fire and kindling, and every piece of wood you burn has a British thermal unit value that your body and your family's survival depends on understanding. White oak runs about 29 million BTUs per cord, black locust runs nearly 30, eastern red cedar runs about 13. Pine runs about 17 but throws so much creosote that burning it in a closed firebox is an invitation to a chimney fire that will take your house. The men who cut and stacked wood in the Depression era could look at a cord of split wood and tell you within 10% how many weeks of heat it represented, what it would do to their flue, and what mix they needed to maintain a coal bed through a January night without waking to restock. That is called fire judgment, and it is a skill that takes one winter to learn if you are paying attention and a lifetime to master. The year fire judgment died in American households is easy to pinpoint. It was the late 1960s and early 1970s when natural gas lines reached rural communities that previously heated with wood, and when central heating shifted responsibility for warmth from the man with an axe in a woodshed to a company with a meter and a monthly bill. Nobody wrote a law against knowing your wood species. They just made sure you never needed to, because there was a meter involved, and the meter was profitable, and your wood judgment was not a conspiracy, friend. just how markets work. And just like that, in one generation, the thing Emmett called first and last became the kind of knowledge that only old men in hollows still carry. Here is your this week on this one. Go out to wherever you store or buy your firewood. Pull 3 pieces of different wood and split them fresh if you can. Look at the grain. Smell the cross-section. Get a field guide to eastern trees, or the equivalent for your region, and identify what you are burning. Write it down. Start the file. That is the beginning of fire judgment. It takes 1 winter to build and a lifetime to trust, but it starts with 1 piece of wood and a name. I passed Emmett's full 7-point wood assessment over my own woodpile this past October. Found 3 pieces I would have burned without a second thought 5 years ago that I now know were throwing more creosote than heat. 3 pieces out of a cord and a half. That is the difference between a judgment and a guess. Your grandfather knew all of this, friend. Every bit of it. Some of it he knew in his hands before he knew it in words. Somebody just did not get the chance to hand it down to you. That is not your fault. But it is your watch now. Don't let it die on your watch. Tell me below, did your grandparents put up a root cellar? Did they cure their own meat? Or smoke their own fish? Did they keep a sour starter alive on the back of the stove, or did they use a different method I have not gotten to yet? Write it in the comments. I read every single one, and I mean that. Here's how the next video gets made. Whichever story gets the most comments, that is the one I go deep on. So if there is something in today's list you want the full treatment on, say so below. Next time, the 2-cent flour and water trick that kept whole families fed for 6 straight months in 1932 and 33, and the year the commercial bread industry made sure your grandmother stopped thinking she needed to know how to do it herself. I have got the page numbers from Emmett's book, and I have got the accounts from 3 counties in Appalachia that document it. Keep what they knew. It'll keep you